Heads up, the following podcast contains adult language and deals with adult subjects. Keep this in mind as you listen.
On today's episode, we're responding to your feedback about the Season 3 drop and its style.
On with the show.
Hey folks, I'm Grace.
And I'm James. Welcome to Fundamental Shift, a podcast where we explore the major shakeups in our lives, their fault lines, and aftershocks.
Thanks for joining us. You're in for a real shit show.
So we wanted to thank everyone for their feedback on the Season 3 premiere. And that feedback actually on our more candid conversation style, it ran the gamut from the best show I've ever heard to a lot of really good constructive criticism. And we're grateful for both. I mean, obviously one was more fun than the other, but we'll be implementing many of your suggestions, and I can't tell you how much it means for many of you letting us know that you see and appreciate the vulnerability of this season already. I hope that whether today is your first show or you've heard all of them, we can connect on another level this season. That's truly the goal, right, Grace?
Absolutely. You know, with that in mind, we wanted to remind everybody that Fundamental Shift is a big tent inclusive show, as opposed to, say, having a target audience. Mm-hmm. We just felt like we needed to address while we're not solely an evangelical deconstruction podcast. There are many of those, and they are wonderful. I know I've gotten so much out of being parts of those communities and hearing them, but that's just not who we are exclusively. It is absolutely a part of who we are, but we are a show of nuance, and we've talked about that many times. And being evangelicals, deconstruction is a part of our lives. And sometimes it's only a very, very minimal part of our lives. I can go years where it's just a thing in the very, very background of my life. But sometimes it smacks you upside the head like a 2x4, which is what happened to me over the summer during our unplanned hiatus. And I did discuss that in Season 3, Episode 1. If you would like to go back and hear about that a little more. I had to do a lot of deconstructing over the summer, and it was the first time I had to delve deep like that again. So every time that comes up in our lives, of course, we're going to talk about it, right? It's part of our lives. It's part of the shifts in our lives. But what we really want everyone to know is that we are so interested in hearing other people's experiences from all walks of life, making all kinds of shifts. Regardless of the nature of that shift, we all know what it's like to go through a major shakeup. Then to process that fault line, determine how in the heck did I come to this place? And then to move on living our lives with the aftershocks. And as we all know, some of those are positive, and some of them we work on for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, Fundamental Shift was about stories from the start. We started this show telling our personal stories and inviting you to share yours, whether in interviews, comments, emails, or voicemails. It's a passion project. Our individual shows, The Quieted Mind and Mediocre Mystic, are here to build community within community, diving deeper into our own passion projects. We love the diversity of the entire Fundamental Shift network, and we don't consider ourselves influencers, simply facilitators. We do ads for local businesses that we believe in to share their services, and we're committed to building community, not a commodity. We decided to add a Buy Me a Coffee button on the webpage after many asked if we could start a Patreon. We've teased content jokingly, but we like it indie, and we're going to keep it that way. We'll just humiliate ourselves freely for your enjoyment.
What some of you may not know is that we do every piece of our show on our own. You know, James actually does all of the music, and he's amazing at that. And we do our logos and our blogs and our visuals and our social media and all of that on our own. Mediocre Mystic, I did have a friend help me with that logo for sure, so I want to give Bizry Creative Group some credit there. But other than that, we have done it all. And we do it because we love it, and we love community. And if you've listened to our past shows, you know above all, I love a good casserole. So if you do like what we're doing and you want to buy us a coffee to have with our breakfast casserole, we sure do appreciate it. But even more so, we'd love to hear a story of yours that you would share over a cup of coffee with a friend.
And we also want to recognize that perhaps in some of our current events stories, some of the personal nature may not have translated as well as we'd liked. For us, we were deeply diving into our history with religion and our major shift away from processing everything through that lens. So that's why we're bringing you Season 3 as Candid Conversations.
Yeah, James, as we began to talk about going back in for Season 3, I was just journaling about the show, my feelings of where we've been, where we're going, sort of thing. And as you know, I can really be a perfectionist. And if I had waited until all was perfect in our lives and we could have scripted the show perfectly again, I don't know if we would have ever come back to the studio. I don't know if y'all would have ever seen us in the feed again. You're watching me combat something in real time just by listening. You are watching me say, okay, knees knocking, this is not perfect. Let's push forward and be real and be brave and be courageous. That is really something that I am working on now, is to embrace the moment and not to get in this paralyzing state where you do nothing because it's not perfect. What is perfect? I think we talked about that a bit last week. What is normal? What is perfect?
Yeah.
So while journaling, it occurred to me that my story matters, not because it's one of a kind, but because it's one of many. Because so many of us can relate to some type of fundamentalism or core belief that we've had to deconstruct, whether that be religious or political, environmental, professional, personal, sometimes even about a loved one or a hero. And then to reconstruct our lives, not in the image of any of that, but to discover our true selves and all that comes with walking in that truth. And I just hope that as we come together and realize each of our stories have value and we're not alone, we also learn from one another and hopefully build a community that then builds a world that's less about fear and more about love.
Thanks so much for getting your shift together with us. Don't forget to follow, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts.
YouTube, subscribe to our channel and click the bell for reminders. And now that you've heard from us, we want to hear from you. On YouTube and Facebook, just search for Fundamental Shift. You can text us or leave us a voicemail at 704-665-7473.
You can check out our website, funshiftpod.com. You can email us, funshiftpod@gmail.com. We're also on Twitter and Instagram. Twitter is @funshiftpod and Instagram is @fun.shift.pod.
And remember, folks, shift happens.